Alright, today's video, well, it's about how I make the tank tracks. Well, I guess sorta, how I make the little sprockets to make the chain work, I guess. So for the little home hobbyists that want to make something, and thought I'd have a little fun there. Home hobbyists that want to make like a little hand crank or make a little project with chain and all. So, and we'll start out with the chain itself. So you can see, I didn't have a master link. It was just a, whether it was from a garage door opener or bicycle, I'm not 100% sure. But either way, it doesn't matter, what kind of chain it is or the size of it really. But you can see that's what it started life out as. So instead of a master link, I just simply punched a pin out and put it back in, marked it with a paint marker, so that way I could shrink it up if needed or change the size. So, but I'm pretty happy with this. So I actually made a couple of them, and I think this size will work. So, got put a little smile on my face. So I made a couple of them. And it should work pretty good. And what that started out life as was just a punch plug. Now you can use washers and things like that. It'd probably be a lot easier, but this is just what I had laying around for scrap material, and I wanted it out of stainless. And I believe it's a 3/16. It could be a quarter, but either way, I did have to. You can see, I did have to shave it down even on the back side here, so to get the profile, to get it skinnier. Because I'll show you a little example. This one, I actually got done grinding it just before the video, and it's not 100% complete. Well, neither is this one. You still got to clean it up and everything, but you saw it was in working order. So, but it still is a little bit thicker. Maybe you can see it there just a little bit, but just that little bit of thickness is just enough to where it doesn't quite fit in between the chain. So sometimes it'll get hung up. And see if I can, and it'll also make it, there you go. So you can see it gets a little hung up, and that all that is it's not off-centered so much. It's just not skinny enough, so it's getting kind of jammed in there. So you can use a washer. They work actually fantastic for making home hobby projects and sprockets and things like that. So you can see it started life as that, punch slug there. And I draw the little shape on it that I want. I use a paint marker, because the paint marker, now I've played with this one too many times, so the paint's kind of coming off. I'll have to redo it. But once you do start cutting, you can see it kind of burns it in there, and it makes it to where you can do your whole cut without having to redo it. Now, if I was to use just a regular Sharpie permanent marker, I would have had to redraw that, 3 or 4 times by the time I was done cutting, because the heat would have made the Sharpie mark disappear. Now, there are other ways of getting the dimensions for your sprockets and everything, but I needed just a certain diameter. So this is what I was working with. I wasn't working with an exact size per se for the speed or anything, because this is just getting pushed around. So on the ground, it's only meant for cosmetic looks, and I wanted the chain to fit in there nicely. So, and of course, like I said, this is not finished, because I could still take a rotary file. Come on, there we go. Rotary file, and we'll clean it up, and you can make these a little bit more rounded so the chain goes through there a little smoother. But I'll probably end up cleaning that up still a little bit yet before the finished product. And let's see. Okay, and in order to get the chain and everything, you want to measure out your chain and all. You want to lay it flat. Don't be trying to play with a noodle in the air. It'll save you a lot of time and all that. So lay it flat on something, countertop, the ground, whatever the case may be. And you can see here how I transferred the marks to this. I simply put it on a piece of paper, put the paper around a socket that fit, and you can use anything you want. You can even cut out a piece of wooden plug, the diameter that you need. But like I said, there are other ways of measuring it out. This one just works for me for this instance here. So I transferred the dots to the, you can see some of them a little bit, they're fading away a little. You can see the dots are transferred to the socket, and so I just put that plug on the top and, you know, put the lines where they needed to be and drew my little pattern. How I got to that point and where those little little dots are on this is when you're measuring this, don't try to measure these square holes. Yes, that's where the teeth go, but just measure the pin from pin to pin on center, and that's going to give you your measurement in between there. So because it is the same, it just goes in between. And so that doesn't matter what size of chain you have, you always measure from pin to pin. Just a lot easier to get a measurement that way. Now what you want to do is you want to borrow your boss's tape measure, okay? And this is where Sharpie permanent markers come in handy, because you can wipe it off and put the tape measure back, he'll never know. So this thing has had hundreds of marks on it before in the past, and I've even had bosses laugh at me because instead of writing down the measurements, I'll mark on my tape measure all over the place. I'll even use different colored Sharpies, and write a color code down, because I'd be doing wheelbases for semi trucks, so sometimes I'd need the airlines this length, or etc., because I'd have to add on stuff. So anywho, I'd do color coding instead, and they thought I was kind of weird, but I got my job done a lot faster because I didn't have to go back and try to memorize all these little tiny measurements or whatnot. And mark it out. So what I do is lay it flat and simply just go along marking it out. And the way I clean these off is a little bit of alcohol. You can get an alcohol wipe from the first aid kit, if they have them, they should. But and a little alcohol on a rag or paper towel, and it'll wipe right off, come clean, and you can start over. But I usually keep these on until the next project that I'm doing, so that way I have all the measurements, on hand, just in case I need to go back to them. So that's how I measure out the chain. Now I transfer the marks to the paper. Now you can use line paper like this, go in between the lines, but I always use the grid paper. So in this instance, I wanted 7. Like I said, I was shooting for the size. I wasn't going, necessarily for speed or anything like that. I just wanted the sprockets that fit for the chain. So I wanted 7, and I figured that would be the perfect radius for me. And how I kind of figured that is I just kind of wrapped around my finger and said, okay, that's about what I want, and counted all the points. In fact, this will work really good. Now this is not going to be, oh shoot, dropped my little paper. I don't want to lose that. Oh, see, now it bent it all up. That's why I kept it on that socket, to keep it nice and straight. Anywho, this should work perfect. Okay, so if you wanted to make a radius that was this size right here, you want to count your teeth going from, I usually go on the break here. In fact, I'll use a little pointer instead of my fat finger. So I'll usually go on a break right here and count that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And this will be 11 going this way. So all the way around, you'd have 11 points in contact with that. So now if I were to measure that out and guess what size of material I'd need, of course, like I said, you can take a washer. Washers work great, but you would want to measure. So I'd take a measurement probably from this point here to this point, to the farthest points, this point here maybe. So probably go from this point here to this point here. Do a quick little measurement. Burn about an inch there. So it's going to be about 1.5 inches, for that size right there. is what I'd run. Excuse me. So, I put my 7 dots on there, the size that I needed. Actually, I put 8. I took the 8th one, overlapping the 7th, and glued them together. I just used, you know, the old kid's glue stick. So, use a kid's glue stick to stick it together, and that's how I kept it in the shape and everything. And of course, you saw, you can wrap it on a PVC pipe, wooden block, whatever, you know, cut out a wooden circle, whatever you want. But I put it on here, and then that's how I transferred it to there. So, and of course, that kept it in shape, and I just kept that around while I was making whole pieces. And that is how I made the sprockets. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, get a good little idea on how to make little tiny sprockets and things like that for yourself. And like I said, there are other things. And shoot, let's see what Bob has to say today.
Anything that you try and you don't succeed, if you learn from it, it's not a failure.
Huh? You hear that? If you try something and you don't succeed, but you learned something, so it's not a failure. All right, Bob, you got it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more. And tanks coming along pretty sweet. Peace.